And as a
Recording
point of
in
visual
progress.
access, I'm a 40-year-old white woman with long, curly brown hair and a dress with a colorful pattern of trees and sloths. A year ago, as we prepared to welcome 5783, I struggled to reflect on the year that had passed. 5782 was a year of joy and giggles with my nibblings, camping trips with friends, and a year when Torah school had returned to in-person learning. But it was also a year when I had not felt that I was at my best, when I had not been able to be present in the ways that I wanted. It was a year of physical and emotional challenges, of learning to deal with chronic illness, but it was also a year when it felt like a year when I was never able to be as kind or as patient as I wanted to be. Approaching Rosh Hashanah last year, I found that I needed to reframe this time of year. Reflection on the past year had become painful, not in a meaningful way that could lead to personal growth, but in a way that was harmful. With guidance from a friend, I had a late-night mikveh dunk in a river and let go of the year. Last year on Rosh Hashanah, out of necessity, I focused on looking forward to the next year, to hoping for a different world. So much of our liturgy at this time of year focuses on personal change through awareness of the ways that we are not our best. Yes, reflection is a necessary practice for self-improvement and change. Listing my wrongdoings for me, though, is a much more natural mode than dreaming about a better future. And I'm learning how to better balance these traditions. Hope for a different future is so deeply ingrained in our tradition as well. Our theme this year for the Days of Awe is Dreams of a World to Come, Olam Haba. Over the next days and beginning tonight so beautifully from Ami and Carol, you'll hear of the dreams of Kol Tzedek members as they share vorts. And I want to invite you all to take time to dream too. Especially if there are moments when reflecting on the year is too painful, and especially if dreaming and hoping isn't as natural for you as listing the things you have done wrong. For the ancient rabbis, Olam Haba was an afterlife. They didn't agree on how or when or where, as Rabbi Ari Lev said, to find Olam Haba, but they longed to merit a place in its perfect future. Sometimes it was a plain filled with righteous souls, unencumbered by bodies and physical needs. Sometimes it was an embodied world with feasts, freedom, and perfect justice. Sometimes it already existed in a different plane, and sometimes it would yet be brought about by the coming of a Messiah. As they conceived of it, Olam Haba was a way to explain the injustices of the world. The Torah says over and over that if you follow the mitzvot and do what God says, God will reward you, and if you don't, God will punish you. The ancient rabbis believed that the Torah was perfect divine teaching, and this reward and punishment seemed like a good system. Do good, you get good. Do bad, you get bad. But they also weren't oblivious. They saw people suffer. They saw good people suffer. They suffered. They saw evil people rewarded. On the surface, it might have seemed like divine reward and punishment wasn't being handed out fairly. But the idea of Olam Haba, another world after this one, was a container for this contradiction. If you were suffering despite being a good person here, despite studying Torah and doing the mitzvot, it must mean that you would have a huge reward somewhere, sometime in the world to come. Olam Haba was a symbol for hope, for the belief that even when we can't see the reasoning, pain and suffering are not senseless. The system wasn't broken, it's just bigger than what we can see from where we are. Hundreds of years later, Maimonides summarized this idea for the ancient rabbis, saying, "The good that is hidden for the righteous is the life of the world to come." Facing suffering and oppression with a belief that someday another world will come is beautiful. Hope for redemption is amazing. Hope for a place that is not as unjust or as painful as this world might ever be, may be necessary to live in this world. But maybe the possibility of redemption doesn't need to be left to the afterlife. Maybe it's not a Messiah sent by God that will bring redemption. In 18th century Europe, the time of enlightenment and emancipation felt redemptive, liberatory, and very human. Rational humanist thinkers didn't believe in a separate future world of divine reward. And redemption for them wasn't something that would be brought on by a messenger from God. Redemption was already happening. We were bringing about our own salvation. The intellectualism of early Reform Judaism didn't leave space for messianic redemption, but very importantly, it did not let go of the hope that comes with it. In the 1850s, Rabbi Isaac Mayer Wise published a prayer book for his and other American Reform communities. Minhag America, as he called the book, had a very full Hebrew liturgy with English translation and some philosophical changes. Among these was changing one word in the first blessing of the Amidah. Instead of umevi goel livnei vneihem, God brings a redeemer to future generations. This new Siddur read umevi geula livnei vneihem. God brings redemption to future generations. We're not waiting for one person, for one redeemer. We're asking for redemption even as we're creating redemption together. The hope for a new changed world doesn't need to be relegated to waiting for an afterlife. We can dream of an olam haba that we are building in this world. We don't need to look forward to a messianic time of resurrection to find that hope. We can look forward to and hope for redemption and change, both personal and systemic. We translate olam haba as world to come, but perhaps more literally, it's the world that is coming actively. Grammatically, it's the same Hebrew construction as phrases like next week, next month, or perhaps the familiar phrase l'shana haba'ah, next year. The phrase next year changes meaning with an assumption that wherever we are, whatever year we're in, there will always be another year coming. Maybe there's not just one olam haba, one perfect world for everyone. Maybe there is a world that's coming now, and then when we get to that world, there will be another world that's coming, and the next one, and the next one. Instead of hoping for one perfect world, limiting ourselves to this flawed world and a future perfect world, maybe the next world is one of small changes, a world of less suffering, an easier year, some small progress towards justice. Maybe the next world isn't the perfect one yet, but is recognizably different from this one in some way. Recently, I was taking care of two young friends, as I often do. We were talking about the need for diversity in commercially available dolls, after the sighted 7-year-old introduced me to one of her dolls who was blind. She's making a service dog harness and a cane because she thinks dolls should have those things. I told these children about the first doll in the Barbie universe with a wheelchair. In 1997, people were excited to buy Becky, but it turned out that she didn't fit through the door of the Barbie dream house. And her feet stuck out of the elevator. I asked these two children what they would do. The 4-year-old looked at me like I had asked the most obvious question and said, "Make the door bigger?" And in that moment, like so many others when I talk to kids, I thought about a world that is coming, when someday these children will be leaders who make the door bigger without questioning. I spent a week this summer at Camp Havaya, the Reconstructionist camp in the Poconos. I loved learning with the kids, including some of our KT kids who were there, and I was blown away by the culture of camp. At the end of Shabbat, at the all-camp talent show, some of the youngest kids performed dance routines to pop songs. Their routines were sweet and imperfect. But what was more beautiful was watching the older teens cheer the kids on and sing along. It felt like another world where mistakes were not laughed at and kids were supported and cared for in community, not just because of a special talent they might have. As we journey through the days of awe together, I invite you to think of moments when you've noticed a new world, moments of hope from the past year. And along with the reflection and planning that come with a new year, I invite you to make space for hope. If you need to take a break from reflecting on a painful year, if it doesn't feel helpful for you to focus on ways that you have missed the mark, know that our tradition also offers space to set that aside for a moment, to dream of a perfect future. If you're maybe an expert at listing and thinking of all of the mistakes you've made, I invite you to find space to balance that with dreaming and imagining what could be. Olam Haba is coming. Maybe there are many next worlds to dream of. The door of this dream house is big enough for all of us, and you are all welcome to come in. Lashana Tova.
We now invite you to turn to the song sheet that was on or beneath the chair you had as we integrate Rabbi Michelle's brilliance and wisdom and sing this Sephardic piyut called Achot Ketana, which we introduced last Rosh Hashanah morning, a year ago, and which it is traditional to sing on Erev Rosh Hashanah, of which the chorus is really our greatest hope and connects deeply to the Torah of Rabbi Michelle, which is, let the year and its curses end, and let the new year and its blessings begin.
Feel free to join us on the drone, which we really need, or the words. Beno amilim lecha tikra veshir vehilulim ki lecha na ad matali Nice and loud for us in the final verse.
Let the year and her blessings begin. I invite you to rise and body your spirit for Aleinu on page 57.